did you feel like during this process?
Such a hard question. This is like, I feel like this is like the hardest question to answer, because if you've ever done anything that's like difficult for a long amount of time, like you don't like sit around and think how terrible you feel. Like it's just like
while you're in the moment.
Literally, it's like cognitive dissonance. Like your brain like just can't imagine that you like feel that terrible. So you just like, you convince yourself that like you're fine, and like your entire world around you is like on fire and you're like, I'm totally fine. Like, what the fuck?
It's like that meme with the like
dog
everything's
in the
fine.
burning house.
It's like everything's on fire.
Yeah, you're like, but I'm fine. Like, it's all good. What the hell? I mean, I think like, and I was just reflecting on this too. You know, I'm in a time in my life where like, I don't have kids. Like like my responsibilities are myself and running my business. And I live in a place where it's super easy to be active. Like my schedule super flexible. So I think like I have this unique kind of time when I can participate in this sport like in a pretty unique way that I probably won't be able to do in 2 or 5 years. So I think like given the environment that I've created for myself, like I could feel really fucking terrible and still like show up and like do my job well and like do all of my daily things okay. But I think it would have been a lot harder, or like I would have had to manage stuff differently if I had like an office job, or I had to like interface with people more. If I was like, I know a lot of personal trainers like prep. I'm like, how the fuck do you train clients for like 8 hours a day, like while you're dieting? Like I could barely even like, I look back at like some of my stories and I'm like talking slow, like shit is not working up here. I think that was the biggest thing I noticed this last prep, was just like my cognitive function was like pretty fucking terrible. Even my like energy throughout the day, like if I kept myself moving and walking, I actually like felt okay. But my brain power like took the biggest hit pretty early on too. That was interesting.
So, Tiana, obviously we'll kind of count out your first show, since that was just kind of like a fuck around, find out, like you literally just dieted, signed up for a show.
100%.
So it's like when you kind of decided like, oh, this was fun, like I want to do this again. What was the timeline between, you said you were like, cause you're 5'6", right? 5'5", 5'6". So you were 5'6", and you were about 160 something pounds. And then by stage, you got down to 140. What was the time frame difference between that? Like how long were you prepping to go into the show?
So I think I'm looking at my graph. I think we officially started dieting. Let's see. I think we started like in January, and the show was the end of July. So maybe it was like 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
With pretty much at some point, Sam, like 2 months before the show, he's like, we haven't had any diet breaks. I was like, we've had no diet breaks. Like no
Dude,
diet breaks.
I remember you came to, because I was in Austin that second show, and you came to Austin, and
did I look tiny?
You looked super tiny, but also too, like you were saying that your diet was so clean that asparagus tasted sweet. Like I don't even know, like vegetable. like I'm like, I've never heard that before ever in my life.
So this was some other like rabbit hole that I've been super fascinated like in learning about with this whole prep stuff, is how much like my hunger and satiety hormones like fluctuated during all of this, and how like when I was super lean, like literally any food item tasted fucking phenomenal. Like asparagus, like it literally tasted like dessert with a little bit of salt. I was like, oh, this is amazing. But I think that's like, I had never experienced that before. And like, that was like a next level of like dieting to me. I was like, oh, this is like fucking weird. Like people always have weird prep stories. So the freezer or refrigerator we had in the hotel in Austin, Like it was supposed to be a refrigerator, but it ended up like freezing stuff. And so I had all these hard boiled eggs that I had put in there, and they had frozen.
And you ate them, didn't you?
I did. I was so hungry.
You had exicles.
Egg ice cubes.
You had exicles.
But
Oh
I
my
ate them.
gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to do what you got to do, though. You know, and you were hungry.
What did your nutrition choices kind of look like? Well, again, just call this like your first prep since it was your first like, official one. But like, I think it's common, especially when we watch social media, you see so much of kind of like the if it fits your macros approach, where it's like everything that people are eating is sugar-free, very, like very processed and stuff like that. So it's like, reversely, especially after coaching for years with you, your nutrition was always the opposite, where it was a lot of whole foods, and it wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, I eat fruits and vegetables. It'd be like, I eat like 1,200 grams of fruits and vegetables. So like, if you were gonna
plants,
so if you were gonna summarize, like, how did you choose, what foods you were eating during prep and stuff like that?
So I think this is, again, like the hunger and satiety hormone stuff. I kind of like went pretty deep down this rabbit hole. Like pretty much the entire prep, I was like, what food choices can I make that are going to make me feel the most satisfied? Because again, like when you're dieting for 6 months, like, that you're going to get to a point where you're hungry more often than not. And I do think there's like a timestamp on how long anyone can like tolerate that. So I was really making an effort to like stay as satisfied as possible for as long as possible. So I was doing a ton of like, I figured out, I know not everyone can tolerate raw vegetables, but they actually work really well for me. And like the crunchy, like chewing thing is really good for satiety. So I would just like cut up, pretty large bowls of like, I'd have carrots, zucchini, eat a ton of just like raw plants. And I go in phases with like meat where I just have no interest in eating meat whatsoever. I was vegetarian for a long time growing up. I don't know if it has anything to do with that, but I'll like go in phases where I'm like, I don't want to freaking eat chicken. So I'll just like, I'll eat my plants and I'll have a protein shake or something. And so there's times where I actually get a lot of my protein, like from protein supplements, like powders and shakes and stuff. And I mean, I don't think it's a terrible thing. I'm still hitting my protein requirements, like whatever. But so I would do some of that. But when I was eating protein, it's all basic stuff like chicken. We have a local seafood market. So I was going out there and all the guys at the seafood market were convincing me that the fish was way better raw than it was cooked. So I was doing like ceviche and like just a ton of just like basic, boring protein foods. Like the other thing about Key West that makes it different is like, we don't have Costco, we don't have Whole Foods, we don't have Trader Joe's. So
cooking is not canceled.
Cooking is not canceled. So, my food is super basic, like chicken, ground beef, ground turkey. I fuck with tuna packs and canned salmon. Like I'm not opposed to those things.
Yeah.
I will eat them. And yeah, like, oh my gosh, I did so many berries, like raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, avocado, nuts and seeds for fats. Like that was like pretty much how I thought about it during prep. It was like, I need a protein source. I need a ton of plants to get my carbs in. I still kept in cereal post-workout because I fucking love cereal. It's crunchy. And I think that there are some potential benefits to having those faster digesting carbs in the post-workout window for recovery. Even if it meant I was a little bit more hungry, I thought that the recovery benefit was worth it. So I did have like some... What are
your top two
cereal?
Yeah.
Lucky Charms. Duh. And
well,
then probably
it's healthier
like
than meat, but I don't know. According to that
little
article.
How many people sent me that story? I got that shit so many times. I was like, whatever.
Lucky Charms is the GOAT, though.
Lucky Charms, or I really like what is it, Crispix?
Okay.
Which is like what, half corn and half rice, I think.
Definitely a cinnamon Chex, cinnamon toast, any cinnamon cereal for sure.
Yo, so good. Yeah. Cereal is like, I feel like too, like, I think for me, there's like some emotional stuff with cereal because it was a food that I used to like binge on, like pretty like boxes of cereal. And so the fact that I can like now like eat some after a workout and like, that's it. It's like, I'm like, yes, like we're winning.